Hey, what's going on, guys? This is AndrewChicken's, savant of Deadlock meme builds, and welcome back to another video. I have made a lot of meme builds here on the channel, and so today I thought it would be fun to take every meme build that I have either made or used on the channel since the item shop rework and put them all onto a tier list. So this will be a pretty typical format for the tier list. We have 5 tiers: S for the best, A, B, C, and then D for the worst. And I'm rating these meme builds based on 2 separate factors. The first, how fun was the build to play? Obviously, that's a very important quality for a meme build. And the second quality is, how good was the actual build when it comes to its performance in the match? Because if a meme build isn't very effective, then it's likely also not very fun, and it's just not really a good idea to play it in a match. Whereas some of my meme builds have actually been surprisingly effective, so those are the 2 requirements for this tier list. So before we get started, if you've been enjoying all the content on the channel, including all of the very silly meme builds that I've been making, then make sure that you're subscribed down below to stay up to date on all my latest videos. But with that being said, let's get started with the D tier. So down here we have 2 builds with a very similar premise. They are both split shot based builds, which is a new item that got introduced with the item shop rework that kind of fell on its face. I don't really see too many people using it, and when they do use it, they almost always lose. So at the very bottom of D tier here, we have Flak Cannon Viscous, which makes use of Split Shot and his alternate fire to spam out a bunch of explosives. Sounds good in principle, but in practice, it just sucks. It really just sucks. It's almost completely ineffective, and as such, it's not really fun to play either. And so it is the absolute worst build on this tier list, which is a shame, because I absolutely love Viscous, but Split Shot just ain't it. Speaking of Split Shot, the next build here, down in D tier, is a Grey Talon. Grey Talon is the character I got closest to making Split Shot work with, because it has a multiplicative effect with the Split Shot from his rain of arrows. So you go up into the sky, and then you shoot out like 25 arrows with Split Shot. It's very funny, but it still, again, isn't really that effective. It is certainly very funny, and that's why it goes above Viscous, but I still found myself really struggling to make this build work, and I just don't really have fond memories of it. The only thing it really gave me was a really cool thumbnail. Next, we move on to the C tier, with builds that were slightly more effective, but still just not really that great. So first, at the bottom of C tier, we have Sniper Abrams. Now, Gun Abrams is actually pretty good, and I have played it a few times since then with a much better version of the build, but building Abrams around long range and sharpshooter, it's just not very good. The video I made was entertaining, but a lot of the kills I got weren't even making use out of long range or sharpshooter. I was still actually within a close enough range, you know, pinning people, slamming people, that I just wasn't even getting the damage bonus, and so the whole build concept just doesn't work. Sharpshooter makes absolutely no sense on a shotgun, because most of your pellets aren't going to be hitting people, and then, you know, due to the synergy with his abilities, where he wants to be up close all the time, that means that for the other percentage of the time, when the build is actually working, you know, when you're actually in your effective range doing damage, Sharpshooter isn't even in effect. So, just not a really good build. Next, we have Melee Vindicta. This, I feel like I got insanely lucky with the match I actually played for this on the channel, but it really just doesn't make sense. She's got 2 stamina bars, she has no survivability up close, she really just is not a character who's meant to do melee at all. It's really funny when it works, but it's not something that works consistently at all. It's just a wacky idea. After that, we have the first of a trilogy of meme builds that I did where I only buy items from one category. And the worst of those by far was the only gun items build, because out of all 3, it just had the absolute worst survivability, and so even though I did pretty good gun damage, I often struggled to stay alive to actually make any impact in the fight. And so that's why it's going down into C tier, because it was really, really difficult to survive with, and as such, yeah, it wasn't really that fun to play, because it's not fun to just sit on a respawn screen most of the time, or be running away from the enemies because you're constantly 1 HP. Last but not least, at the top of C tier, we have the Zoo build, which is a build where I only buy items with animals on the cover. It's an interesting idea, but a lot of the items don't really synergize that well together. I ended up just not buying a lot of the items that actually do have animals on the cover, and the rest of the items that I did buy made an okay gun build, but it wasn't really that interesting of a gun build. A lot of it ended up just being standard stuff you'd buy on Viper anyways, like burst fire. So it's not really that exciting. It sounds a lot better on paper than it does in practice, and so that's why it goes at the top of C tier. Next up, we get to B tier, the most populated tier of the tier list, and we start things off with Melee Haze. Similar to Melee Vindicta, Haze isn't really a character who wants to do melee too much. She's more of the silent assassin and huge gun damage type of character. But it works a lot better than Melee Vindicta because of the Echo Shard sleep combo. So you basically sleep someone, wind up that heavy melee, punch them, then Echo Shard, sleep them again, punch them again, and by that point they're usually almost dead. So I had a few funny moments with that. It was a lot more enjoyable to me than Melee Vindicta, and it seemed more effective too, so that's why it's going to go at the bottom of B tier. After that, we have the only spirit items build, which worked a little bit better than the gun build. Fun fact, I did actually end up dying more times in that video than the gun build, but part of that was just because the match went on a lot longer. But I felt like I was able to be much more impactful because it did have a lot more sustain, and also something that I realized way late after I already had the video ready to go and published, is that I could have bought Ethereal Shift during that match, which I'm surprised not really anybody in the comment section pointed out, but theoretically you can buy Ethereal Shift and get way better survivability than the gun build, by an order of magnitude. Like, it's actually crazy. So if we consider that as well, then all of a sudden the Spirit build is looking much, much better than the gun build, so that's why it's going to go into the B tier. After that, we have Omega Evil Stun 7, where we stun lock enemies into infinity. We go Echo Shard with his stun, we max it out, max out the duration, get other stun items like Knockdown and Curse. It's evil. It's really, really evil, and it's a funny concept, but in practice, it's a lot of buttons to press, first of all, which, you know, kind of is a lot. It's overwhelming. But also, I don't really feel it's actually that effective compared to a lot of the builds that we're going to see in the A and the S tiers. You really lack a lot of damage compared to more conventional 7 builds, and that's really what you want with 7 in today's meta. So, certainly an off-meta build. It's a funny concept, but there are also a lot of things that the enemies can do to counter it. One unstoppable, and your entire build just goes to waste. So, yeah, it's going to be kind of limited to the B tier because of those factors. After that, we have Grill Vindicta, which is the combo where you throw down a stake, throw down an alk fire, then you Echo Shard the stake, and you basically trap people in a second time. It really helps you lock down enemies for you and your team to kill, and it is a really interesting way to play Vindicta that almost completely deviates away from the more traditional sniper-focused gameplay, although you can absolutely still snipe people when they're trapped in your tether. And so it's a really funny concept, and I find it to be a little bit more original and a bit more popular than the Stun 7. But I also feel it does have a lot of shortcomings. You're not going to have the greatest gun damage nor sniper damage because you're going out of your way to buy a lot of these other items, and one debuff remover or unstoppable, again, just completely nixes your entire setup. You can debuff remove the stake, and well, sure, you have a second stake ready to go for them. A lot of the damage has already been done, and your build just isn't as effective anymore. So that is another limiting factor that keeps it into B tier. Then finally, at the top of B tier, we have the AI-generated Haze build. This was a really interesting one. I asked Gemini, which is Google's AI, to create me a Haze build, and it took a little bit of finagling and actually prompting the AI to give me really what I needed, but eventually we got a workable build out of it, and it honestly wasn't terrible. It was a very workable Haze build. It certainly wasn't perfect. There were a lot of things you could change about it, but it was reasonably effective, and I think a lot of the reasons why I struggled in that video were just down to personal skill issue. So I definitely could have done better with it, but the reason it's at B tier is because, yeah, it could be more effective, but also, at the end of the day, it just wasn't a very original or exciting build. It was a very plain vanilla gun Haze build at the end of the day. So while it was interesting to get it from an AI, the actual build itself is just kind of okay. It's really, I think, the definition of a B tier build for this tier list. Alright, next let's go up to the A tier. These are some builds that I really enjoyed playing. Let's get started with the Vitality Only Shiv. This was by far the most successful of my trilogy where I only bought items from one specific category. Shiv is an excellent character for this because he already has a natural synergy with a lot of the Vitality items in the game due to his deferred damage over time, but then also he has the Execute, which allows him to have an easy time getting kills with absolutely zero items invested. As long as his teammates are doing damage, he can get the job done, make space in the team fight, and then execute people and finish them off. So I had an absolute blast playing this build. It was fantastic, but I am not going to rank it in S tier because I do think it falls just short of some of the builds that we put in S tier. And ultimately, if you did actually go and buy a couple of gun items or a couple of spirit items to complement this build, it would do a lot better. But Shiv's fun, and yeah, this build really ended up suiting him absolutely fantastically. Next up, we have the Barrier Maxing Warden, where I bought every barrier item that I could get my grubby little hands on for Warden. This was another really fun build to play, and I ended up playing it a few times off camera just for the sheer enjoyment of it, because it's just that fun. You get a lot of survivability, and you can sustain yourself in pretty much any situation. It is stupid. But it does fall short of an S tier ranking because we have another Warden build that was even more fun than this, and I would argue even more effective than this, because the one sort of area where the barrier build falls short is that it doesn't do quite as much damage as you could do with other Warden builds. But it was still really funny. I had a lot of fun making the video, and so it absolutely deserves an A ranking. After that, we have Invisible Moe and Krill, which was very, very evil. I like the idea of this build a lot, even though I haven't actually played that much of it. Basically, you take a normal Moe and Krill build, and then you slap Shadow Weave into it, and you go invisible. And then you walk up on somebody, and you ambush them. We got to see just a small sliver of its power when we absolutely dumpstered a paradox that I ended up putting into a YouTube short. So that was a lot of fun, and I think this build has a lot of potential. Maybe I should revisit it at some point, but I'm going to give it an A ranking as well, because otherwise, apart from the invisibility, it is just a normal Moe and Crow build, which is insanely powerful. So the power ranking is also doing a lot of heavy lifting here. It is one of the more effective builds that we've seen. And at the top of A tier, we have Melee Lash, which is a very, very silly build indeed, and one that I've only played recently, and I actually didn't even make the build for it. I actually used someone else's build for it. But this is surprisingly effective. Lash actually has a really good kit for going in and getting up in close quarters with somebody. That grapple is a really good movement tool. The slam as well puts him right in somebody's face. He's a prime candidate for actually using a melee build, surprisingly, as long as you build him to have a lot of survivability, because that's really what he lacks in his kit. But that's pretty easy to do with the items that we have at the item store right now, so this ended up being surprisingly effective and an absolute blast to play. And I actually played it again recently on stream, just on a totally different day, decided, hey, let's play some Melee Lash. It still felt fantastic. It was it's actually crazy. It might not even necessarily be a meme build. It might just be another valid, viable way to play Lash at this point. It was a lot of fun. Finally, let's go up to the S tier. These are the two builds that I have had the most fun with when it comes to meme builds on this channel. They're absolutely fantastic, and so let's get started with Counter Only Shiv, where I basically only bought counterplay items. It's actually very similar to the Vitality Only items, except I'm also able to buy purple items that are just disgusting, like slowing hacks, curse, etc. And I really got to see those items shine when I tested this build. I just made some filthy plays against Calico, Lash, etc. Those items are just busted, and I had a lot of survivability too, because I was just building myself in a way where I'd be tanking against whatever the enemies threw at me. This was an absolute blast to play, and it really opened my eyes to just how fun slowing hex could be, how fun curse could be, and I've ended up buying those items more since this video, so Yeah, for me, this is an easy S tier. And then, at the very, very top of S tier, one of the most successful meme builds I have ever made is the Sonic the Hedgehog Warden build, where we basically max out his movement speed and his gun damage, and use that in tandem with the movement speed buff that you get from his barrier. I forget what it's called, the second ability. You just go flying. You zoom at the enemies at Mach 10. It is terrifying if you're on the opposite end of this build, because you just have an ulting warden going and just slamming into you and your entire team. And yeah, the chase potential of this build is fantastic. It still has good survivability too, partly just because you can run away from any situation that you don't like. And it actually brings a pretty good amount of damage too, because a lot of the speed items in this game, like Burst Fire and Headhunter, are also really good gun items too. So compared to the barrier build, this actually ends up bringing a lot more damage to the table. Such a fun playstyle. I had a lot of people in the comments also enjoying this playstyle a lot. In terms of the actual view count it got too, for as far as my meme videos are concerned. Yeah, it got a lot of views. A lot of people really liked it for that too. So I think just overall, I think this is the best, most successful meme build I've had on the channel. It was an absolute blast to play, and yeah. I love Warden, I love meme builds, I love Shiv, I love meme builds. Both of them just have really, really good meme builds. And yeah, I honestly can probably even cook up some more ideas for these characters. I got a few things simmering in the back of my mind, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video, so let me know what your favorite meme build of mine was in the comments section down below, and if you have any other silly build ideas, please let me know. I would love to test your ideas. Just leave them in the comments. I do read the comments, as a matter of fact, so yeah, all of that is greatly appreciated. But if you guys have enjoyed, make sure to drop a like on this video, subscribe for more videos from me, and I will see you all next time. Peace out.